wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I should say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give, but I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I can do, though I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew, but well, I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if by my heart I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing, 'cause I know, yeah. And I'd sing, 'cause I know, yeah. And I'd sing, 'cause I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be free. Yeah, yeah, I know how it feels. Yes, I know how it feels, how it feels to be free. Oh, Lord.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Rainisha, and I am an active youth in the community. I've grown up being a part of nonprofits, and I've witnessed the incarceration factor play a huge part in what's going on, which is why I'm here today to discuss some things. Well, thank you for being a part of the Racial Equality Census. The topic tonight is community solutions to prevent incarcerations, and you're going to be hearing from some great panelists this evening. I do want to give a thank you to our sponsors for the event, Group Health, Microsoft, and Caser Permente. And I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into everything and start asking the panel some questions. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Go ahead and just please tell us who you are, where you are from, and what brings you to this work today.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
But I can't hear anyone. Oh boy. I'm gonna close out and try to come back in if that's okay, and see if that helps. Okay.
My name is Portia. I am with Team Child. I've been with Team Child for 3 years. And in regards to, I'm from Seattle originally, born and raised, been here a majority of my life. And what brings me to this work is growing up in Seattle. I was directly impacted by various things that took place in the Seattle area throughout the 80s. And had my own experiences dealing with youth homelessness as well as the foster system and consequences of the incarceration system. And so that is also part of the driving force as to why I do what I do.
I'll go next. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marshawn Barber, and I'm the founder and executive director of Reclaiming Our Greatness. What brings me to this work is the desire to work with community to create transformative change in the lives of BIPOC youth and their families so that they are more likely to thrive and achieve positive outcomes in their lives.
Hi, my name is Odalis, and I am a part of the People's Assembly, and we focus on our work around the Lakewood and Tacoma area. And I'm really in this space because I want to see my community flourish in the future. And a lot of our work really concentrates on the youth and educating them because it is the youth of our community who are going to be our next leaders. And so that's why I'm here to be able to bring a safe space to all.
Alrighty, so our topic is community solutions and alternatives to incarceration. Can you tell us what your organization does to address this?
Is this to me?
Well, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, so we can hear you now. Can you hear everybody?
Yeah. Should I
Okay.
repeat the question? Introduce myself. I apologize for that.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Well, my name is Kiwi Hamilton, and I am the Community Relations Coordinator for the IF Project. And, I've been a part of the IF Project for 13 years. I'm formerly incarcerated for almost 14 years at WCCW. And I've been a part of this group since it was literally just a question of if somebody could have said or done something that would have changed the path that led you to where you are, what would that have been? And, we answered that question 13 years ago in hopes that it would change and affect the lives of the youth that were, on the same path that we were when we were young, when we needed help and we didn't get it. I'm from Tacoma, Washington. And, what brings me to this work is, my dedication to my community and my love and passion for people and helping those in need, as well as being driven to help change the justice system by giving impact of folks like myself a platform for their voices to be heard. Thank you. And then should I go and answer the question, be the first? Yeah, all right, no problem. So this would definitely, for that question, be the reentry aspect of IF. We use a community family of impacted folks to guide others and to help build a more equitable society. We have a speakers team for youth and adults, and it allows people to utilize their experiences to speak to other community members, stakeholders. Everyone loves a victory story, but oftentimes when it's rooted in the form of social deviance, they stop listening. So our speakers team gives people who have been cast out by society their opportunity to speak to systems that held them in bondage, and speak to the challenges that they faced upon the release in spite of all the barriers. And at IF, we say, we can't change what got you there, but we can create opportunities and platforms for you to utilize the empowerment that you've gained in your journey to push folks to face what, they don't want to. We have mentor programs. The reality is that interpersonal relationships are essential to maintaining systems of support for those who are releasing, especially youth. And having someone who has been through job denials and housing rejections and LFOs, et cetera, it's something that someone who hasn't been there can't do. And we provide mentorship to those folks while they're still incarcerated. And the mentors stay with the mentees upon release, youth and adult, and through our community partnerships. We don't believe that IF is the only solution. We believe that IF is just one of the stopping points in someone's journey. And our hope is that we get to bear witness to that journey for better or worse. Working with organizations who know how to do what we can't do is part of that. All this great work is happening because we're all choosing to do things differently. And in doing so, we get to hold space for the folks who need it most so they can become leaders in the communities as well. So.
Anybody want to go next?
I'll go next. At Reclaiming Our Greatness, we began with a focus on housing stability and education support. We work with youth and provide cross-generational case management to the whole entire family and systems navigation guidance. We believe if we stabilize the youth and family early on, that they have a better chance at success in education and their entire lives when grant they're not frantically scrambling to meet their basic needs. So we like to walk alongside families and, like Kiwi said, develop those personal relationships and also leverage our relationships in the community with other organizations to support the family overall.
Okay.
At Team Child, one of the things that we do is we play several parts. We are a legal advocacy organization that works with youth and represents youth in civil matters, things like access to education, mental health services, secure housing, and so forth. With that legal advocacy, we do address barriers that would prevent youth from getting access to those things. And oftentimes that includes connecting the youth with partners in the community and getting them connected to resources that are going to help address the barriers that they're facing, as well as with the case management support and all of those things that they experience. We take the approach that is the holistic approach with the child or the youth that ranges from 12 to 24. By playing that connector, we understand that the youth that comes through our doors oftentimes have more issues than just a legal issue or just dealing with the juvenile courts. Oftentimes there are other barriers, there's other issues in the household, things like access to education, low income, those things contribute to the services that this youth is needing. And so by being able to assess their needs, we can then connect them to communities and partners that we work with on a daily basis. And so that's how we're addressing the system and what our youth are dealing with being incarcerated.
So at the People's Assembly, we truly focus on educating the leaders of our future, as I said, who are youth in our community. And so our organization does this by hosting and facilitating many events for the youth in our community, as well as their families. So some of the events that we've hosted are such as the Youth Activism Camp and the Creative Resistance Camp, as well as the Know Your Rights Summit, which is done every year. And these are held to educate the students on their rights and on all the movements that they can start and the actions that they can take in order to pursue that justice in their community. And we like to ask ourselves, how do we get free? And because we are really surrounded by these oppressive systems. So we also like to express our feelings through many movements that we portray through art, and like the Creative Resistance Camp was able to help the youth in our community learn about how to express themselves through art, as well as we did an exhibit at the Alma Mater Gallery. And so something very important about the People's Assembly is the connections that it also creates. So we've been able to connect with other groups and individuals in the community, such as the OSPI and even here with Team Child. So it's very effective in creating those connections and those bonds with the youth in our community.
All right. So how do you guys feel like your organization addresses racial equality or equity? I'm sorry.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, for the IF project, I would say by making sure as many voices are included as possible, including youth. We are constantly educating and becoming aware of the needs of BIPOC folks, as well as educating people about mass incarceration of BIPOC people. A lot of people don't know the why, and the why is something that it focuses on getting out as well. Also, we give opportunities for employment and contract employment to people of color. We have a diverse advisory council and speakers team of formerly incarcerated folks through our community partnerships, civil engagement, policy, legislative support of policies and laws that impact communities in color. So yeah. Oh, and we also have we make sure that the voices for our curriculum that we create. I don't know if I share this, I might not, because my volume was off, but our program, all the programs that were created for IF were based off of the answers to that question I posed earlier of folks when we answered when we were incarcerated, as well as youth answering those questions. So our youth curriculum and our adult curriculums include BIPOC and formerly incarcerated folks' voices. So.
For Team Child, the way that we address the racial equity is we understand that low income and youth of color have lack of access to legal services, and not only lack of access to legal services, but knowing what their rights are in various environments, whether it be in education, the juvenile courts, day-to-day movements, knowing their rights and access to mental health services. And so for us, we target those particular groups so that they're aware of what their rights are to advocate for the services that they need to improve their quality of life and be sustainable and avoid the incarceration system.
The People's Assembly really focuses on racial equity by allowing the youth to speak on what they truly believe and their experiences. And we create many groups in which we can have a safe space for the youth to talk about these things and put their beliefs into actions. And I think that our work really focuses on empowering the youth and really helping each of us explain what we truly believe.
Reclaiming Our Greatness addresses racial equity by having conversations with our staff and board members about race and how it impacts our mission, vision, and values. We also constantly collect data and evaluate our data to get clear pictures on inequity and outcome gaps internally and externally within the organization. We use the information that we collect from our data to guide our current work and long-term goals for the organization to make sure that we're reaching and continuing to serve our focus populations.
Thanks.
All righty. So my next question is, why do youth of color get disproportionately criminalized and incarcerated? What are some roots, or what are some of the root causes of this?
That's a big one.
Did
I
you
think
want
we can all go in on that question.
Oh, I was gonna say everybody can go.
I think we can all go in on that question because I mean, that's definitely like, we can start and go back all the way to slavery. I mean, if we really want to go back and talk about how racist the system is and how it was built that way, I mean, that's where it starts. We can also, I mean, get all the way to the other end of it, like the over policing of our community, the over policing of you have SROs and police officers in schools. And you'll notice that especially within King County and Pierce County, what the population of that school is that they now have police officers at. And why is that? So, I mean, we can just start at those little spots to be able to identify where it all started and began. And then it continues to perpetuate. It's like, one of the things that I see within the system is every time you have us come into this system to try to combat the issues in how our children are ending up in the incarceration system and the penal system, and we go to combat it and we create legislative and policies to try to address it, but it's like the system has an autocorrect. We have found that even through legislation that it never works in our favor, even though we think 3 steps ahead, but we end up looking up and the impact is not directly impacting the needs of our community. It's impacting the alternate community. And so the system is definitely designed in a way that is to incarcerate our people. I can't call it any other way other than the system is racist.
Yep. Yep, the systemic inequalities, and then the disparity and differences in how young people of color are treated at every point of contact with the justice system. Generational poverty, which is poverty is the #1 indicator of incarceration in the world. Most youth crimes are committed because youth are in survival mode, trying to get their basic needs fulfilled. We have adultification of juveniles of color. Black children, you know, as young as 13 are being viewed as adults. You know, the immediate assumption that youth of color are aggressors in school altercations, presumed gang affiliation, just, you know, by the way they look. You know, these youth are, you know, they're burdened by the presumption of guilt and dangerousness. You know, it just, there's so
We
much.
we were just talking about in the car, the simple fact of like, you know, claiming your hood, like, you know, if you really look at like, it's going back to just claiming your community, like, but now that's considered gang affiliation and it's automatically criminalized just to be able to say where you come from.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's everything is criminalized in the Black community.
Yeah, I especially think that SROs contribute so much to like the school to prison pipeline and all these difficulties that go on with our youth because I know like the origins of policing were to preserve slavery, and like that just shows that the roots of policing are not or have set up our policing now, and how there's like racial prejudice rather than legitimate action or cause that's being criminalized. And I think that, like, for example, SROs target individuals rather than protecting and defending those who are truly being affected by, I know like many people get bullied or just like there's a lot of violence, and this isn't being addressed or prevented, but it's being targeted towards BIPOC and other minority communities.
And I would just add that, you know, the systems and institutions that we are told that are supposed to help us are steeped in bias and not set up to actually solve the problems that are contributing to us, like Kiwi said, having generational poverty and not having access to equitable resources to try to reverse some of the traumatic things that have happened to Black and Brown youth and families throughout history.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to just the lack of comfortability for youth to like voice when it comes to like their poverty or their generational curses is kind of hit or miss, because you got to think about it when it comes to like mental health or counseling. Chances are it's a white person who cannot relate to anything you're talking about. And it's just one of those sympathy cards, you know, just, it's not I mean, it's supposed to be a safe space, but I'm just speaking from experience with me. Like when I'm venting, I feel like I'm getting it out, but at the same time, I don't feel like they're understanding where I'm coming from. It's a lot of, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, you're thinking, oh, I'm sorry, I've never been through that, but here is this, and this. It's just one of those type things. And I just feel like when it comes to stuff like that, it's important to have like more African Americans or people of color or just diversity instead of just one race when it comes to things, to make the youth feel more comfortable with voicing what is going on and what the issue is, so they can be more sympathetic and understand.
Right. Very well put.
So that's just me speaking from experience. But yeah, so I definitely agree with those as well. So can we talk about like the system failures?
Yeah, let's start with the replicas of adult prisons, you know, factories of failure. You can't design punishment for children the same as adults, period. You know, also the failure in systems of education, which we all know, we've all mentioned the school prison pipeline. You know, they're funneled out of public schools and the juvenile, you know, to the juvenile system. And these children have learning disabilities, histories of poverty, abuse, neglect, you know, and they would benefit from, you know, additional educational or counseling service or something, not just punitive. And also, I think a big thing is not giving youth a voice or a chance to be architects of their lives. It's like they're constantly ignored. I remember being ignored. The kids that I work with now, they always say they're never heard. We gotta listen to these folks. We gotta listen to these young minds, you know, or it's just nothing's gonna change, in my opinion.
The one thing that I hear a lot of youth say is they feel invisible.
Yeah.
And when you have a whole population that feels invisible, and that's the very population that is getting their lack of services, lack of support. And that support and services extends not just from the education, like your access to mental health services. Because we also know that there is a lot of trauma that comes from poverty. We have to address that there's generational trauma that's passed down with no understanding as to where that trauma even began. And so when you have that generational trauma that's being passed down, and we have children that don't know how to process that and heal from that trauma, and being told, suck it up, because that's what the generation before was told, is continuing to perpetuate all of those things. And you'll see that in some communities, go to counseling, go to therapy, go get all of these access to things to help rebuild you, so that way you can have some autonomy, you can address the mental health issues. But that when it comes to the Black and Brown community, those services at one point in time they were obsolete. They weren't there. And when you don't have access to those ways in which to rebuild and heal from that generational trauma, you just continue to pass it down to the next generation. And when you add that on top of putting them into the education system, and then the education system criminalizes their behavior. You have children, like Kiwi said, they're looked at as like predators as early as 6 years old. Really, as a 6-year-old that's now being viewed in this light of being a criminal, and they're looked at as subhuman. And so you look at where the system is breaking down, is that it's continuing to perpetuate this idea that these are subhuman people, that their humanity is gone.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're not worthy of anything more, of anyone's time, anyone's effort, anyone's care, concern, or love. Like the thing with if is like, what if that one person would have came in, what could they have done to completely change my trajectory? And it's something as simple as love, care, and concern that can change someone's trajectory. And we see that time and time again when we work with these youth, is that we're able to help step in and be those connectors and give them that, and letting them know that they are worthy of that. The other thing that comes to my mind in the breakdown of the system and the failure of the system is the failure of the system to call out the fact that it is, again, I hate to keep saying the same thing, but it's not designed to build us up. It is not designed to heal us. It is not designed to make us whole. It is designed for it to continue to perpetuate and cause harm to our community, because we find over and over again that they're making money off of us. There's so many different ways they're making money off of us, hand over fist. So therefore, they have no vested interest in actually rehabilitating and actually healing our communities. So, I mean, to me, that's where the system failure comes in, is that we're looking at a complete system that's built on the dollar, not the humanity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. And I feel like the love, care, and concern, you hit that right on the nail, because, through, our research and through, the IF project has been around for 13 years. And that same, when we analyze the answers to the IF question, those are the 3 main things for both youth and adults, was love, care, and concern. If they would have had that met at some point in their life, it would have prevented them from that trajectory. Major.
Yeah, I just feel like systems want to focus on the negative circumstances and the events that, whether it's the criminal justice system, the child welfare system, or the school system, that brought the young person or their family into the system. It doesn't do much to acknowledge the youth or the family, their culture, their family structure, pockets of strength and resilience, because we all have so much strength and resilience as Black and Brown people. And so we just get into this cycle of who's deserving and who's undeserving. And the system, like Portia said, just lets us down and never creates pockets and opportunities for us to heal and grow.
even building on the who's deserving and who's undeserving, like to whose standards?
Right.
Like, it's, to me, everyone's deserving, but they, and then they say, well, we don't have capacity to provide to everyone. Well, why? That whole capacity issue when it comes to the way that the systems support our community, it's this, what is it? It's fake. It's not even real. Like, you have capacity where you want to have capacity. I'm a believer in people do what they want to do and they not do what they don't want to do. And just like these systems, if they want to do this work, they'll do this work. They will all of a sudden, when it's about building new youth prisons, they got the money to do that, but they got the money to provide things to the community and what's needed in the community. Oh, we don't have the funds for that, but we can build multi-million-dollar youth jails. Sounds a little, again, your priorities.
Yeah.
Want to
I
do.
agree with that 100% because they're building the prisons that, to punish kids for crimes, but I'm pretty sure if they would have channeled that money into like a shelter or a community center or, just other outlets for youth to be a part of and like be around other youths, I'm pretty sure it would be a whole different dynamic. But you guys are so or they're so used to building like more of the negative and like contributing to the problem. Like, oh, we're going to build this prison here. We're going to build this prison here. Like, I know for me personally, like the community centers, they played a big part on my life because I'm around youth that, resemble me. We all got similar backgrounds. We're all, kicking it, just being youths. But, I feel like their money, as Portia said, could be going towards the solution more instead of always contributing to the problem because it's so simple, but like you said, they're making money out of it. So they're not realizing like long term because they don't really care for it. They make time for who they want to make time for. And I don't think they see us as anything more than the narrative that the media sees us, or what majority people sees. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the media really has conditioned us to, like as Portia said, suck it up and just live through all of these, like knowing, we all know that like the prisons and incarceration is all just a whole business and that's all that truly matters to them. And we're just expected to like live with that without really fighting for any like change. But I think that it's like important for us to really speak up about it and to like host spaces that are really like open to the youth because it is important to talk about how the system is failing and how it's conditioning us to believe that what's going on is just something normal.
Anybody have anything else to add? No? And so that leads me to my next question. What are some prevention strategies that help young people avoid incarceration? Like what are the biggest needs for communities to invest in young people?
I can talk a little bit. I mean, I think everybody has a lot of things to add on this subject. But I think, the two gentlemen in the first part of the series in the conversations with Doug Baldwin touched on the need for positive pro-social activities and opportunities for them to be educated and safe healing spaces to process their trauma and emotions, and just more buildings where they can go and engage in positivity and have mentors that look like them. And I think that the city, county, community, and private donors need to continue to invest in those spaces and those community-based organizations that are doing work like that.
Right. I agree. And, like support opportunities, like you kind of mentioned, to engage in critical thinking and decision-making for them, mentors, you said positive adults and peers, and educational advancement and work opportunities are important because I know that comes across as a lot of issues when we speak to youth because they're, you know, they're either too young to get a job, and so they resort to the streets of, you know, making their money, but really they just want opportunities, work opportunities, or allowance opportunities just to get money, because sometimes they're the only people in their family that make money, you know, and also services and supports that are in home when possible. And I'm just always going to reiterate, we have to constantly listen to the voices of those impacted, young and old. This allows for us to build a freeway to access, opposed to a one-way road, which never works, you know, and, you know, show up, be present, listen, and come back. You know, consistency is key, and that's what they're telling us. So I just say, let's do it. You got to do it.
I would also add on top of that, really evaluating the things that youth are criminalized over.
Yeah.
That right there alone, you're criminalized for not going to school. You're criminalized for being outside too late. There's certain things that we really are looking at, like, is that really genuinely criminal behavior? If the idea about law and order, as they want to claim, is about protecting people, what is it that we're really protecting? And how is it that how are we doing that? Like, really looking at what are some of the laws that are in place that are causing youth to end up in the criminal system? And is it truly, is it a crime? Is it something you have to really look at? Like, we look at youth, we talk about the youth that cannot, youth that want to work. Oftentimes youth are the only ones in the household that are capable of working at that moment, but you have a 14-year-old who cannot get a job, but needs access to certain things. But now, because they're stealing or whatever, it's now been criminalized, and now they've been taken out of the home, and so many other collateral consequences to that, when really it could have been like, oh, wait a minute, all this youth really needs is a job. Something as simple as a job could solve this youth's problems at this moment in time. And really looking at, like, how are we criminalizing our kids? And is it really worth it in the end to cause all of this harm that it's impacting into these communities? So I would really just say decriminalizing a lot of the youth's behaviors and interactions that they have. Something as simple as not attending school. And now you're finding yourself involved in the courts.
Yeah.
Once you get involved in that court system, it is a tangled web that is very difficult to get out of. So it's, things like that.
Right. And also investing in them when they're faced with struggles and trauma and difficulties, instead of, like you said, criminalizing certain behaviors. Yeah.
I feel like they start off with the youth because it just kind of reflects on what you said earlier with them being racist. So it's like, I'm gonna get you incarcerated and out of here while you're young. So, just get that out the way. And now I'm gonna start this cycle. So as you get older, that's just already in your file. Like, just stamping them early. And I feel like that's unfair when it comes to, like, the smallest things. We were talking about in the car as well, like, when a 6-year-old got arrested for picking a tulip on someone else's property. Like, I don't understand that. He's 6, probably picking a flower for his mom. Who knows? But now he's arrested for it. I just feel like certain things like that is like, it's not worth it. It's not, because now you're placing that narrative. Like, imagine growing up and be like, you know what, I got arrested when I was 6 for picking a flower. Like, that's not okay.
We even look at the trauma that interaction.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You have, I just from personal, like, we had prior to COVID, our school, my kids' elementary school started having an actual police officer attending the elementary school. And my kids come home like, what is this? Why? And when we're looking at, especially as Black and brown children, how those interactions can lead and end up. Now there's this issue of, going to school. So the trauma in it, it's when you have, especially a youth, and we're looking at, like, we're talking about right here in Washington State, where we've had children put in handcuffs as young as 6 and 7 years old. This isn't something that's happening down south or in this is happening right here in Pierce and King County. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trauma that creates, it's shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to really address that trauma through like mental health guidance. And I think something that has really worked for me is like truly finding like a mentor and a person that I can really go to and be vulnerable with, because a lot of the time that trauma can like build up and lead to violence, and then incarceration, and then like just falling into that system and going back and forth and back and forth because you don't have anyone to really rely on and to speak about your issues with. So it's really important to really find a space and find invest in those spaces, as Renisha was saying, that all that money that is going into maybe SROs can be reallocated into other like spaces, like youth centers and spaces that'll make the youth feel safe and not being oppressed as like the system is right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say it's important to divert those resources to community, because there are people in the community who want to be a positive influence on youth and work with youth. So youth can identify with adults and elders in the community that look like them, that are successful, that have overcome some of the same challenges. And so I think that, the schools and the juvenile justice system has to do something different and seek out those people because they're there. And I think they want to work with our young people and help them.
Mhm.
So another question is, what are some alternatives to policing and other, ooh, that's a, what word is that? It starts with a P.
Punitive?
Yes, okay, what other punitive approaches can we take? Sorry, I'd never seen that word, so that was a doozy. But yeah, what are some alternatives to policing and other punitive approaches?
Got it. You got it. I'd say, for one, educating the pathways of incarceration to police officer and judges, so they won't walk into a situation or look at a situation with a black and white lens.
Mhm.
And also diverting kids who've been sentenced into community programs rather than detention centers, and helping youth who have been detained envision a future after incarceration instead of, perpetuating that continual cycle of getting locked up and getting out and getting locked up. But yeah, I can go more, but I know y'all folks probably got some stuff too.
You're good, Kiwi. I think, as far as like, first of all, we have to take away this idea of punitive. We
Mhm.
start there as a people in society. Stop looking at it as a punitive. Like, not everything needs to be penalized. Let's just, start there and start addressing those types of things and the thought processes that make us think that everything has to end up with, there has to be a punishment to everything. I think that that's one of the things to start with in addressing the incarceration system, is the idea that everyone needs, like, there's a punishment that needs to be had because you did something wrong, and restating the narrative as to what can we do to help support, build, guide, detour from the behavior that's happening. What is it that this person or this community is lacking that is needed to help sustain this community and help this community continue to grow? So for me, it just starts with just taking it, like, that whole narrative of punitive, just all of that, just like we've got to do away with that thought process as a people, and then start looking at what can we start doing to actually heal, and what are some things and systems that we can put in place for healing. There's a lot of programs that are out there that are really trying to work towards how are we going to start healing as our communities that have been harmed by these systems, and taking, I don't want to say take ownership, because that makes it sound as if we have not been taking ownership as a community, but it is like giving it to us and letting us continue to support and build each other in addressing some of those issues that we're having that are resulting in the youth and adults being in the incarceration system.
That goes off something that's as small as listening, though. And that I feel like a lot of people
Big.
don't pay attention to that because we've been voicing that a lot during this discussion. And that's because that's really all it is. Someone being listened to and being heard and actually feel like they're being valued because maybe their background, they never felt that before, which is resulting them in some behaviors that they have transpired to. So I feel like it's just important to create a safe space as what I forgot how to pronounce her name. But she was mentioning earlier, just a safe space, being around mentors and positive influences instead of what the media is portraying them when they turn on the TV, or what someone has said to them. Now they question themselves a lot and they feel like they're nothing more than. And it's just important to uplift them and let them know like they're capable of doing anything and they don't have to go certain routes that is projected on them, or when they are looked at a certain type of way. Like you don't have to pay attention to that because you're bound to be something way more than what the system is trying to dilute you as. So
Mhm.
that's just one of my things on that one. Anybody else want to say?
Yeah, I would really argue that a lot of the alternatives to policing are techniques that are used for like de-escalation, which I really believe that should be taught to school staff and teachers, and like just a lot of the people in general who are surrounding these the youth in our communities, because um, I know that I talked earlier about preventing rather than like resolving after the fact. So I think that it's important for older people to be educated as well on um, the trauma that we do carry and the trauma that continue to persist. And so, if something does happen, I think it's important for someone older to be able to kind of talk about it, and also maybe I know we were talking about sympathizing versus empathizing. So it's really important for someone to be able to understand what we're all going through.
And I would just echo the things that everybody has said. And I agree with Portia. We've got to change the narrative and get away from punishment, particularly as it applies to our young people. And people make mistakes, everybody does. And it's a learning opportunity to find out what's wrong and find ways to fix it and provide healing and support, because our youth have a long time to live in this world, and punishing them and creating collateral consequences that follow them for the rest of their lives is not the way to go about it, and nobody ends up coming out of that in a good way.
Mhm. Affects the whole community. Mhm.
So what are the biggest ways we can support your work and stay involved?
I mean, I'll go, I guess. I'd say definitely by, supporting policy and legislator that support alternatives to incarceration and policies that impact communities of color. By volunteering your time, talent, or treasure to the IF Project or like organizations, and providing networking opportunities for our participants in our program, the young folks and other folks that we serve. And best as you can, try to educate yourself about the justice system and the effects it have on BIPOC communities and youth.
Okay.
Building on that, I would also, you can follow on social media, sign up for newsletters from all of our organizations. Keep yourself up to date on the things that are taking place and the things that we're working on to support. And of course, money is always great to help these organizations and ourselves continue to be able to provide the services to our community. So, you can always support that way. But also, like I said, and then educating people around you. We also have the opportunity for our circle of influence to be able to share the impacts that the system has on the youth and the communities that we're serving. So educating yourself, following on social media, and signing up for newsletters.
Yeah, the People's Assembly would really like to welcome the youth and our communities to join all of our groups and all of our events, and really be a part of this movement towards change. And for more details like about upcoming events, everyone can visit thepeoplesassembly.com, and you'll also be able to find our socials to stay connected with all of our work. And again, on Instagram, we do have a lot of our work on there where you can see how the youth have spoken up about like the change that they would like to see and their vision for the future. And we welcome everyone to also be a part of this change.
I would say Reclaiming Our Greatness also welcomes volunteers and the following of us on social media to see what we're up to. I would encourage people on a general level just to get out there and learn about what smaller grassroots organizations are doing, because there are a lot of great people doing work. There are a lot of virtual opportunities to participate, like for example, on this panel, lots of grassroots organizations like Black Elephant, King County Equity Now, Africa Town, they're all hosting these types of conversations around issues that are affecting their communities. And so we live in the age of technology and there's a lot more access now. So I would just challenge those who want to get involved and learn more about the community impacts of incarceration and other things, such as access to economic opportunities, financial literacy, food equity, all of those things are being discussed and talked about right now. So if you do your part and do a little bit of research, you'll be able to find out more information and get involved in a cause that calls to your heart.
Does anybody have anything else to kind of shout on to?
I mean, I think our conversation was amazing today. I do just want to say thank you all for the invitation to speak with such amazing folks. And I want to say I was so excited to be, I love being on panels where there's youth. If we're speaking about things that affect youth, I always feel like they need to be at the table. And so this was my pleasure to be here with you all to share this space. And I'm grateful and thankful for that.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Just going to add to that, just thank you to, Team Child for creating this platform to help, continue to push the issues that are happening within our community and helping to make an impact change and getting the information out to various groups and stakeholders that support all of our work. So just thank you to all of you guys for participating, because we definitely, this work is not going to do itself, and so the work that you guys do is very, very much appreciated from one community member, mom, all of those things to all of you, that it is definitely does not go without appreciation and love.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the panelists tonight. I enjoyed chatting with everybody and learning about their perspectives. It just helps, me when I'm doing my work with community. So I appreciate all of you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank all our panelists as well, and Team Child for really opening up this space, because it is very important to have these conversations and to speak about what we truly believe. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. I was kind of nervous, not gonna lie. Never did the virtual conversation, but
You did great.
Oh, thank you. But no, I feel like some of the issues we kind of put a nail on tonight. So Because I honestly feel like it starts off with the youth when it comes to a lot of things, and we can't keep doing what we're doing to them. And that's why I enjoy these type of conversations, because not only am I learning about different organizations, but I'm also educating myself more on you guys' view when it comes to certain things and being more open to things that, you know, I already kind of had a feel for. But then once it's like said from a different party, it's just like, oh, well, when you put it like that, that kind of, yeah. So thank you guys for being a part of the panel as well.
Awesome.
Well, I think that's it.
All right.
Hope
to have future collabs in the, you know, in the.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm definitely going to follow you guys because I am aware that you guys are on social media, so I'm going to be following you guys.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love sharing. If you need a media person,
Okay.
I got you.
I might take you up on that now.
No, I'm serious. I'm share.
Okay.
So-
Okay. Good to know.
My baby don't care for shows. My baby don't care for clothes. My baby just cares for me. My baby don't care for cars and races. My baby don't care for hot dog places. Liz Taylor